So thank you, Leslie. I wanted to point out in your packets, you'll find an evaluation, and believe me, the Department of Defense and, the U.S. government is way into assessment right now. So please, please, please fill out your evaluation, especially if you liked the conference. If you didn't like it, not so nice. No, I'm joking. Okay. And please leave them, Bart, where?
We'll have a spot.
There's a box out on the registration table. Please, please fill them out. It's very useful to us, and we'll make it possible, hopefully Bill Steele can talk about this sometime, to get more Army money to run these things. So, the next thing in your packet is a coupon for the time you go both of them. Oh, you can just use this one if you want. Is that on? Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm going to introduce our speakers as they present, just in case people come in or out of the conference. And we will be having the speakers on the order of the program. The first one is Jeffrey Boss, who's a research fellow at Fort Leavenworth. The title of his paper is The Future of Frontier Crime Regulations and Implications for Security at the Afghan-Pakistan Border. Jeff Boss is a University of Kansas CGIS graduate student and CGIS FMSO fellow. His research focuses on the federally administrated tribal areas in western Pakistan. He's researching frontier crimes regulations, their relationships to local norms, and potential implications of the repeal. He's a lieutenant paramedic with Johnson County Med Act, where he's a member of multiple special operations groups, and is the leader of emergency operations teams. So please join me in welcoming Jeffrey Boss to present his paper.
Thank you. There's been initially with much discussion on time. I'll be the one that will definitely give you a little bit of a balance to deal with. I won't take my full 20 minutes today. I agree. It's an honor to be able to share some of my research with you today. And today I'll be discussing the Frontier Crimes Regulation, or the FCR, and some of the related security implications at the Afghan and Pakistan border. The federally administered tribal area, or FATA, of Pakistan is often described as a lawless or an ungoverned region. However, this isn't the case. FATA is governed by Pashtunwali, the tribal code of the Pashtuns, and the Frontier Crimes Regulation. For us to understand the nature of border security paradigms in FATA, it is critical we possess an awareness of tribal customs and as well as Pakistani federal law. We will look at a brief overview of this. However, let us orient ourselves just a bit. So here's a map. Over here we have Afghanistan, over here we have Afghanistan and India, and then the blue area, what you see here, is going to be FATA, the federally administered tribal area. And FATA is predominantly Pashtun in population and has as many as 60 tribes that reside there. The tribes can be further divided into approximately 400 subclans. And the FATA consists of 7 semi-autonomous tribal agencies, which consist of Bajur, which will be the far north. The next slide will be able to see a little bit better, but Bajur, Mohman, Khyber, Orakzai, Kurram, and then north and south Waziristan, respectively. The red line that I have highlighted through there on the map represents the Durand line. It's the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. and the Duran Line was established in 1893. When it was established, it divided the Pashtun tribes between what is now Afghanistan and Pakistan. However, the Pashtuns paid little heed to this division, as they defined their territory by tribal relations rather than an international border. I'm just going to share just a bit of history with you to kind of give some perspective. During colonial times, inhabitants of the northwest frontier were often a concern for British Indians. The Pashtuns had frequent incursions and raids into the settled area. The British attempted to resolve those security concerns by giving the tribes a semi-autonomous status. The Malaks, or tribal elders, were paid allowances or subsidies in return for safe passage through the tribal land. This resulted in the creation of the FCR in 1848, which went through several revisions, and the final draft, which is utilized today, became official in 1901. So, a question that should be asked is, what is the FCR? So, FCR is a judicial system that mixes tribal customs and norms with presidential executive control. Interestingly, Pakistan has maintained this colonial era administrative system. And because of this, the Pakistani constitution does not apply to the residents of Fatah. And FCR is really what is the law of the land there. So, by definition, FCR creates a separate and unequal status for the residents of Fatah. Collective punishment is an example of how the separate and unequal status manifests itself. And a few examples of collective punishment, which is possible under FCR, are imprisonment for up to 3 years for accusations of breaching of the peace, which can be extended if the political agent, which is the district magistrate, deems it necessary. Raising of homes or buildings if the tribe is considered to be hostile, and seizure or confiscation of property. All these things can occur without the right to appeal. Because of this, the FCR is often described as a draconian or a black law that needs to be repealed. But there has been little discussion about limited discussion about the potential security implications of said. We've looked at the federal law. Now we'll have a brief overview of some of the tribal customs. These customs, to include Pashtun Wali, form the foundation of Pashtun life in its ideal form. It's fairly uniform across the approximate 400 subclans of Fatah, which is interesting as it is based on oral tradition. Pashtun Wali emphasizes honor, hospitality, and revenge, and the result is a highly egalitarian and acephalous tribal structure. So the Pashtuns are, one way to put it, are severely independent and protect that, and they have no defined chief. An immediate repeal of FCR, as argued by some, from the research I have found, is not a plausible solution. The population, infrastructure, and governance system of Pakistan is not ready to deal with that scenario. And history has shown that Fatah is an area which chronically creates headaches for those attempting to govern. An immediate repeal would create a vacuum in power in Fatah and could provide an opportunity for the creation of an area similar to Afghanistan underneath the Taliban. An effective coin strategy is imperative to lay the foundation for a possible repeal of FCR. And you'll notice Pakistan's coin strategy as compared to the U.S. consists of a softer approach. You won't see anything about clearing an area up there. Force in itself is not emphasized. This is more in line with the realities of an army that is operating within a domestic versus a foreign environment. I know this looks a little busy, but I want to develop a manageable reference with which information can be gleaned from contemporary historic literature for practitioners to utilize. Of course, I don't have all the answers, but I want to emphasize some points that will be considered, that have to be considered if a repeal for FCR were to be implemented. And these are a work in progress, and it is assumed that I or others will continue to add to the diagram up here. While useful if it's threatened right in front of you, is a little too complex to discuss in detail at this time. So I'm going to focus on one certain area here. I'm going to focus on territorial responsibilities. Power flows from the president through a political agent, which is a district magistrate, as I had mentioned before, down to the tribes. And under section 22 of the FCR, the entire village may be fined if the political agent believes members committed or assisted in the commission of a crime, failed to assist with the location of offenders, assisted with the escape, or harbored an offender, or suppressed evidence. And as mentioned before, none of these fines can be appealed in a court of law, if you will. Now that I've established what FCR is, some of its impacts, and some of the problems from a security standpoint that are possible from an immediate repeal, we'll explore some potential short-term, intermediate, and long-term goals or strategies that should be considered if a repeal of FCR is to be implemented. And just as before, I have short-term, intermediate, and long-term goals. A little difficult to discuss right here, so I just picked a few out and drew in on them. For the short term, they're going to have to devise a means to transfer from the Jirga system into a Pakistani constitution or penal code. Under Pashtun-Wali, concerns are dealt with at a local level with Jirgas, and then at a somewhat artificial level with through the political agent by creating Jirgas, by electing elders to form that Jirga. When I say doesn't fall in line with the customs, because the decision that comes out of the Jirga, if it's at a local level, those are accepted. It has to be unanimous. But the political agent can accept or reject the decisions of the Jirga. So we need to go from that Jirga system to get underneath the Pakistani Constitution. Intermediate. Let's see if I can point to the right area here. All right, right there. Identify a partner. This is going to happen. You have to have somebody to talk to, somebody to negotiate with. And hundreds of Maliks and tribal elders have been killed during the Talibanization of Fatah. The ideal of the Pashtun culture under Pashtun-Wali really is broken at this point. We need to find a reforming voice that will be accepted by the population. That in itself is a conundrum. A reforming voice is not going to be accepted easily in Pashtun culture at all, due to their extreme independence that they exert, and they feel is their right. And then somehow down the line, you're going to have to diminish the influence of the mullah and return them back to the normal status. Because in a normal status for a mullah in Pashtun culture is during the Jirga they sit on to the side, and they and don't have any direct impact as the tribal elders, and they're used mainly to inflame the population if there's foreign incursion or something that they need to have achieved. The Talibanization of Fatah has created a disconnect and balance of where the mullah normally resides. In the long-term plan, you're going to have to implement a plan to have Fatah governed by Pakistani constitutional penal code. So what you're trying to devise up here, the actual implementation is quite a ways down the road, because there are quite a few things in between that would have to happen, and even more beyond this would have to make that even a reality. So in closing, this diagram illustrates the transition from FCR and Fatah to operating under the Pakistani Penal Code and Constitution will be a long and a highly complicated process that cannot be implemented overnight. Patience, funding, and an effective and persistent coin operation will be imperative to lay the foundation if a repeal is to be successful. Thank you.
Ali Kakachia from the Harriman Institute at Columbia University. The title of his paper is Cross-Border Conflict Dynamics and Security Challenges in Georgia. He's an associate professor of political science at Ivan Yavashvili University in Tbilisi, where he teaches classes on world politics, international organizations, and global governance. His research interests includes Georgian domestic and foreign policy, Russian, Georgian, and U.S.-Georgian relations, wider Black Sea security issues, party systems, and Georgian party politics. In 2009 and 2010, he was a visiting fellow at Black Sea Security Program at Harvard University. He's also worked as an analyst for the Office of Special Representative to the UN Secretary General for Georgia. He served as president of the Georgian Young Political Sciences Association and received a Carnegie Faculty Development Award from the Open Society Institute. He has several recent publications in this area, and I would appreciate if you join me in welcoming Dr. Kakachia to the conference.
First of all, let me thank the organizers of this conference for inviting me here. It's kind of challenging after living a few months in New York, so I've never been in outside of the big cities, and this is the first time I'm being what some people call real America. So it's kind of interesting. First of all, before I start my presentation, I would like to say actually how I came to this research, which is kind of working paper still. You asked me about 1 year ago that I would write something on the cross-border cooperation. I probably would be very surprised because that's not my actually subject of interest, as you can see. But then about 8 months ago, I was approached by Finnish University of Helsinki and the Finnish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they just offered me grants, short-term grants, to make some kind of research in Helsinki, just to look at the situation in South Caucasus. How, is there any chance to develop cross-border and cross-regional cooperation along these volatile borders, and can this kind of relationship mitigate conflicts there? Which was quite interesting, and it was somehow related to the topic, which is kind of security, regional security, where I'm involved. So that was the reason actually I started to look to this topic. And first of all, I looked to the literature if this kind of topic was kind of developed in the region, and I think there was almost none in the South Caucasus, and nobody actually looked. I mean, there's a lot of books and articles generally about the security, but not on the cross-border and cross-regional cooperation. So it's kind of was kind of challenging. So before to start my presentation, I'm not going to go into details why the cross-border and cross-regional cooperation is important generally, and especially in the region like South Caucasus, because as you know, the borders generally they sometimes become the obstacles. Sometimes if it is dealt properly, it can be also a good way of the communication. And this is actually which we really don't have in South Caucasus because of the this protracted conflicts, and because of kind of geopolitical struggles between the different actors, and international and local regional actors. And I think that this is a kind of interesting challenge to look to these issues through this prism. And also kind of during the Soviet Union, of course, this South Caucasus republics, they were actually part of Soviet Union, so they had a joint common transportation area and everything, so they enjoyed it. But after the collapse of Soviet Union, after the conflicts in Abkhazia, in South Ossetia, and in Nagorno-Karabakh, everything was cut. So today we have almost like situation when, for instance, Armenia is kind of deadlocked, and its only access it has to Russia or to Europe, it's through Georgia. And so the border with Turkey actually is closed. And we can see here actually better with this map here, which we have here. I don't know how that. Okay, so here is Armenia, and actually, as you know, there's a conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia over the Nagorno-Karabakh. So they actually have here the same kind of problem. The border is almost like closed. We also know that there is a problem, historical problem between Turkey and Armenia. So this border is also closed. So for Armenia, in order to communicate with the rest of the world, the only way, and all the cargoes which actually Armenia getting it through Georgia and through Black Sea coast of this Georgia. And in other way, Georgia also has a problem because after the conflicts, actually, there's no railway communication between, for instance, between Georgia and Russia because of this conflict region in Abkhazia. And there's the same kind of problem here in the South Ossetia, it was like almost like impossible to use this area. And as well as Azerbaijan is the only country actually who enjoys some kind of direct link with Russia and Azerbaijan, Iran as well. So this is the situation we have, and then I'm not going today to use some problem which we have in North Caucasus because this is absolutely different subject of discussion. Here we have Georgia, according to the international law, and we have a disputed territories here in this territory. And this is a picture of the infamous Rocky Tunnel, which was kind of a center of the attention during the Russian-Georgian War, which otherwise was like 5 days war in 2008. So this is actually located actually here, somewhere in the South Ossetia. This is the only pass actually which was connecting the Georgia, and this is called Military Road, Georgian Military Road, and this was somewhere here. So it was very heavily used from both sides. The Georgians wanted to block that, and the Russians, they just poured the military. So that was kind of very important. Then still is an important kind of tunnel for both sides. And today I'm actually would like to speak more about, because this is kind of a general topic, I would like to concentrate on the case study, which is kind of Russian-Georgian border and Upper Larsky case, and I'll explain you why it is important, and this is actually place and how does it look like for some time. Georgia generally is bordering with several countries, Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia. And for instance, if you look to how the cross-border relationship developed between Georgia and Turkey, that's, I would say, could be the model for regional cooperation on that level. For instance, there is no visa requirement for Georgian citizens and also Azeri citizens in Turkey, and they just started to talk. They just had an agreement between Georgian government and Turkish government. There should be no even passport requirement very soon. So this is kind of good sign of the two governments understand how important it is to have the cross-border and cross-regional cooperation. Georgia actually also enjoys good cross-border relations with Armenia, with Azerbaijan, of course, and there's no actually serious disagreements on demarcation with Armenia or Azerbaijan and Turkey. With Turkey, it's much clearer because it was Soviet border, so there's no contention issues there. But the most disputable border that is with Russia, and you can understand why. And I'm not going to go into details because that's another probably topic. And this border between Georgia and Russia actually runs mainly through the Caucasus. So it was actually never demarcated before because there was actually no need for this. But after the collapse of Soviet Union, there's a change of the geopolitics, and especially now after the Russian-Georgian relations became so bad. I think there is still a need to do this, but I don't know how it should be done that when the two countries actually don't have diplomatic relationship, and they don't, and I don't think that anytime soon there will be kind of rapprochement between these two countries. Another thing which is kind of makes difficult to have this cross-border relationship between these two countries, also the two conflict regions which I already highlighted in Abkhazia and South Ossetia, and also from Georgian perspective, the Russia's encouragement of separatists in Georgia, and the military relationship between Russia and these two separatist entities. Actually, this checkpoint was opened in the 1st of April, and before that it was closed actually several years. The Russian government said that they wanted to rebuild this border checkpoint, which was, and some people speculated this was just political reason actually before, because Russia actually had economic links with Georgia 2006 when the Russian government actually imposed embargo on Georgian goods, starting wine and some other agricultural products. So this was kind of probably part of this. Then we had the war. So suddenly after the war, even though the relationships still are not good, we had this kind of opening of this checkpoint, which was kind of nobody really expected that. And I'm just looking to this case why this has happened actually. And there could be several reasons for this. One is what most of the actual analysts know this could be the so-called Olympic spirit, because as you know there's the 2014 Olympic Games in Sochi, which is kind of very close to Abkhazia, to the conflict region. So in that sense, Moscow realized that actually you need to make some kind of, not really concession, but some kind of show some kind of will to Georgia, that at least that could be interpretation of somebody, but it's not really proven fact. And then this is also listed because actually Kremlin wants to ensure the security of this region, which is just very close from Sochi, and also one of the reasons could be also attempt of Turkish-Armenian rapprochement, which actually was never materialized, but at least it kind of pushed several actors in the region to think a little bit more creatively, and that could be also another reason. But I think that personally, I think the real reason was that request of the Armenian government to Georgian government, because of the situation which I described. For Armenia, it's very important to have a direct link with Georgia, with Russia. So, and after the war, there was absolutely no communication, transport communication between Russia and Armenia. So, understanding the current realities, the Georgian and Armenian government, they tried to somehow to help each other, and that was kind of gesture from Georgian government to somehow assist Armenia. When it was done, actually, Azeri government was not really happy about this, and so we have kind of a little bit complicated situation with Azerbaijan, which of course doesn't favor this kind of opening window to Armenia. Also, just to say a few words about why it is important, because this is actually the only crossing that doesn't go, the Upper Larsi checkpoint doesn't go through breakaway regions of Abkhazia or South Ossetia. So this is the only place where actually you can still use as for economic activities or whatever. And then also from this slide you can see which the topics which I already highlighted, how important is for the landlocked Armenia, and only in August 2008, during this Russian-Georgian war, actually Armenia lost 600 to 700 million US dollars because it was not able to export its own goods to Russian market. So you can understand how important it was for them. Also after opening this checkpoint, it actually brings physically closer Russia and Georgia, but not really politically. So you cannot consider it kind of beginning of rapprochement or something. It is just kind of goodwill towards Armenia or whatever. But I can explain you why. Because there's several problems that, for instance, Georgian citizens, if they want to to go to Russia, they cannot use this place. And same thing for Russian citizens. They have to apply to the Swiss embassy in Moscow and to get a Georgian visa, and the same thing in Tbilisi. So basically, Georgian and Russian citizens, they cannot really use it. The only beneficiary here is Armenia, and Armenian citizens, they can just use it. From that perspective, it doesn't really give anything to Georgia, so this is the reality. But there's several, some kind of development, just recent development, kind of could be speculated like kind of politically motivated. The Georgian government introduced actually visa-free regime to the citizens of the North Caucasus republics. So it means that now everybody in the northern part of Caucasus can actually visit Georgia within the 30 days without visa. So some people speculate this is kind of very dangerous move from Georgian government because it's actually the Kremlin is not happy, but at the same time the Georgian government just accuses the Russia that they did actually the same several years ago with Abkhazia, and they even did worse. They actually given citizenship to the citizens of another country, and actually that's a kind of very dangerous precedent because you can. If you go to that matter, for instance, one day you can claim the territory in Brighton Beach where you have the Russian population, but I don't think that we go so far. That's which we have so far. And also, I just want to highlight that this is a really popular move in Georgia, and public reaction kind of different. Some fear that this reopening of the border could be kind of very dangerous for Georgia because the military can use it for their purposes. But some people here they quite welcome it because they somehow connected on daily basis. They have a kind of interaction with this. In conclusion, I would just say that even though this opening of this checkpoint is a really good sign, and because it's better than nothing, because we have absolutely no contact between these two governments, and I don't think that in the nearest future, in short term and mid term, there isn't any chance that there will be relationship between these two governments. But it doesn't mean that there should not be contact between the citizens of the two countries. So that's why I think that we have to look through this cross-border and cross-regional cooperation. And when I'm saying cross-regional, I mean the conflict region like South Ossetia, Abkhazia, Nagorno-Karabakh. If we will look to these issues on the regional level. So, and there's at least if there is a wish from both sides not to politicize this issue, and like it was the case with the Upper Larsi, this could be good incentive to start some kind of, I'm not saying rapprochement, but at least like normalization of the relationship on the humanitarian basis, which could be also important. And gradual softening of this border control and administrative boundaries in the Georgia separatist region, which is controlled now by Russian militaries, and step-by-step management of separatist conflict could be the good sign which to follow. I think in that sense, this case is kind of important, and but of course this topic is you can write from different angles, but as I said, this is just kind of still a working paper, and I hope I'm also trying to do something, some kind of project and maybe conference in autumn together with Norwegian Barents Institute. So basically what we want is to see all the picture, this cross-border, cross-regional on the regional level. How does it really work? Can it work and some other thing? So this is pretty much it, and thank you very much for your attention.
High Kurdish concentration and high conflict